All right, Battleground. Let's do the thing I need to do before I start Battleground. And that was a mistake I made. I actually forgot. Because there was so much content, I forgot to talk about the Okada and Speedball Mike Bailey match. I want to make this very short. Doesn't need to be longer than 1 or 2 minutes. Let me give it to you like this. When you look at the show, it's actually going to be longer than 2 minutes. Let's be honest here. When you look at the match between Okada and Speedball Mike Bailey for the Continental Championship, I'm going to be honest here. I knew, like much of the people who reviewed Double or Nothing, everything was telegraphed. We knew what they were going to do ahead of time. We did. Look what happened with Tasa's Toni Storm. She won. I was not surprised. There was no reason to even believe she was going to win. And that is Mia Shirakawa. I'm just being honest. And this was the other match I didn't believe anything was going to change. It was not the match quality that I didn't care about. It was a lack of story. And it was a very strong lack of story between Speedball Mike Bailey and Okada. And it's not on their fault. It's not them. It's not Speedball's fault. It's not Okada's fault. It's neither one of their fault. It's just the booking there has been lackluster. And I'm just being very honest here. I liked the match. It was a good match. The quality was fine. But why are you going to care when you know fully that it means nothing? Okada's not doing anything other than just holding a title. And Speedball was just thrown at him because they didn't know who else to throw at an Okada. That's the truth. Sadly, that's what we get with AEW and Double or Nothing. A lot of great matches which don't mean a lot. And that's what I said in my review. The same thing. This was a good match. Like all the matches there. Some of them were very good. When it came to Hangman Page and Ospreay, it was great. But what does it mean storyline-wise? Because we still do not 100% believe that Kenny Omega, who at this point isn't a VP anymore, but basically is going to convince Tony Khan to let Hangman get that title, because we still believe that they're going to keep the title on Moxley, going beyond All In, and it's not going to be Hangman. Hell, they'll just throw it on Darby Allin. And that's why we feel very awkward about it. Now, I had to say that. I hope you guys like that small snippet of Double or Nothing review. Now, here's where there's a stark contrast. Double or Nothing was a good show, even though it was way too damn long. It was good. And easily, there were parts that were memorable, but didn't mean anything for a company. Because legitimately, with the uncertainty of how Tony Khan is booking, you look at TNA, you look at NXT, and you see this show and you're going like, okay, something has done a diametric change in the wrestling industry. That's what you get here. Whether you like the show or not, they just made a change to the wrestling industry that you would not expect. Now, first match. Keanu Jordan versus a Soruka. Look, you guys know me. I love me some Soul. I love Soruka. I still believe that she needs to crank back a little bit more of her gymnastic ability to be more of a wrestler. That's just me. That's my critique of her. But it doesn't take anything away from that she's charismatic. She is a decently good wrestler. She's a beautiful woman. And people like her for her personality as a surfing girl. That's just how she is. And working with Zarya, and understand, Zarya's character is still being developed compared to Marina Shafir and a Stephanie Vakir, who I'll get to in a few minutes. But you can see the difference in Soruka, Zarya, And pretty much Kiani Jordan. Look at her. She went from being a really goody good girl to what we got in this match, which was a good North American Championship match. It was not the best I've ever seen, but it was a good match. In the end, after Zari got ejected because she tried to save Soruka by grabbing a leg and pulling her away from where Kiani was going to flip onto her, she was ejected. But in the end, Soul didn't need to cheat. She snatched the Soul, did Soul Snatcher. That was it, and she retained the title. It was a good opening for the show. It wasn't a bad opening. It was a good one. It got people hyped in Tampa. There was no problem. And I'm actually happy to see it. Now, the 6-man tag, I really wasn't interested in. Look, I'm not against the culling. I'm not against Vance. I'm not against Jensen. I'm not against John Spears. It's just that I don't know what they're really doing with them right now. Because Sean, he lost the North American title. But I don't know if they're going to push Vance and Jensen. And then you're not even talking about what's going to happen with Izzy Jane. You look at the vid pack with Izzy Dane. Yes, she's gorgeous. Nice boobs. And you wonder what they're going to do with her. What are you going to do with Vance? What are you going to do with Jensen? And I'm not sure if they're going to do anything with them properly. Because at this point, you got now, how many factions? You got 2 factions that's going on that you don't know if they're ever going to get over 100%. And that's the culling as well as Dark State, which I am not fond of. I don't care about Dark State at all because of how they booked them. But you see the culling, you got someone in Sean Spears you know they can do something with. But I just don't see where that direction of the booking's going. So we get this match with Hang, Tank, and Briggs. And you wonder they're going to do something important with this match. Will it go somewhere? I wasn't sure. The match was fine. And at the very end of that match, when you see Izzy Dane grabbing a chair because it was Sean Spears that was asking for it, you see that the chair was stopped. Dane couldn't pull it because Iramura is back. I thought that he was finished. Does that mean he's now joining NXT? That's a big question. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to stay there. I know I'm mispronouncing Uemura. There you go. Uemura, is he now part of NXT? Or did they do an extension with Pro Wrestling Noah? If they did, I hope they do something more with just Uemura. I hope they actually bring another member of the roster there to NXT, so at least we get to see them. Because one of the major issues that, let's be honest, AEW or Impact Wrestling used to have was that if they had a collaboration with another company, they never really help the development of the character. They have character there, but if they're working on your company and your shows, shouldn't you do some extra development with them instead of just making them do matches like Impact was doing more than a few times? And definitely with AEW when it comes to CMLL, oh my gosh, they never developed them. They didn't do anything but make them do matches. So I'm hoping Uemura gets more. Uemura will get more development, and also they'll bring someone else, which can make it interesting and maybe they'll be developed. Next, the match I was waiting for. Tony D versus Stax. I was waiting for this match. I understand. The story between Stax and Tony D'Angelo has always been a decently good built story. Let's make it very clear. It's one of the few stories that Shawn Michaels has developed that looks like it hasn't been interfered with that much. It has always stayed in a steady kind of pace, and it is like one-on-one booking. You got somebody was anointed at something. He got a partner, and that partner stuck with him, helped him to develop a faction, and eventually that partner reaches a point of his own development that he's ready to go off on his own, or he believes that the current guy that's running it, or girl, just can't do it and he or she could do it better. That is what we got with Stacks and Tony D. And I was watching for this. I was so hoping that this development would give Stacks what he needed. Because not everyone would agree. They would say that Tony D needs to win the match. No. Just like with Trick Williams dealing with Carmelo Hayes, I saw the same thing with Stacks a while ago. And if anyone has remembered, I've stated it with Trick Williams before he became what he is now. I said he's got the look, he's got the gift for gab, he's got charisma, but you need to prove what you can do in the ring. And the most important thing, he needs to be separated from Carmelo Hayes because he needs to be developed. Same thing when it comes to Stacks. He needs to eventually move away from Tony D, and you need to see what he's going to do. Now, of course, we haven't seen that much development because, let's make it very clear, he hasn't done many matches by himself. Very little talking. Now, I understand that he did fight against the Don, and that was the episode I missed. So that would be that development. But I was hoping for more than just one episode. I'm hoping from this moment going forward, we see more episodes of NXT where he is getting more developed. And Tony D has to figure a way to deal with him. The match was good. Then we get to see Crucifino, who's standing there, and the Don said, "What are you doing there? What's going on?" And as he turned away from his rival, well, technically, he used his leg and kicked him between the legs. But technically speaking, it didn't matter if he used his arm with the gonads or he kicked him with his foot. He won the match. He gets away, and then as Crucifino rolls into the ring to face the Don and hug him, Don doesn't want nothing to do with him because he didn't know what was going on. My guess is Crucifino, and I'll probably repeat this and this is Monday. Tomorrow, Crucifino will be trying to talk to the Don and saying, "I was in the desert. He left me out there. I had to travel back." But the Don's not going to buy it. Don's not going to listen to him. And I do believe Crucifino will make the decision between staying with the Don or going with Stacks. That's what I think might happen. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. Because if Crucifino goes with Stacks, maybe the Don will bring someone else new in that is in the Performance Center that will replace Crucifino and basically have Rizzo by his side. That's what I do believe will happen. It'll be two families, the Stacks family, the Don family, and then you're going to have a war that way. That's how I feel. Next, Obafemi versus Miles Bourne. Okay. I didn't hate the match. It was fine. But there was a question of how far are they going to push Miles Bourne? Because it looks like they're making it only about his hearing and being disabled to a certain extent like myself. Now, I'm not saying I'm hard of hearing. I can hear. But I am disabled. I can't walk no more. I can't work no more. And I walk with a cane. That's just the deal. I'm just who I am. And I try my best not to let that be an impediment to me. But it is what it is. But in pro wrestling, you can use that as fuel for the character to make them more developed. Or, counting on how long you keep that fuel, switch it away from that. And instead of making it a asset, you eventually disregard it and you don't use it anymore because eventually you can't. Because people will eventually get tired of hearing, "Oh, this guy's hard of hearing. He can't hear nothing. Why is he even working?" You don't want that. Eventually, you will have to move away from that impediment and use actual character development. And we know Miles Bourne has not had any real major character development until they started talking about his problems with hearing. So the question's going to be here. And I knew there was no way they're going to Ubafemi just job. It just makes no sense. You need to develop Bourne. If he wins, he won't be developed. And you're going to say, yes, he would. No, he wouldn't. Because it will be about Bourne keeping that title as someone who has a weakness. No. He needs to overcome the weakness and eventually move away from his hearing. In this situation, there was no way he was going to win. Doesn't mean he wasn't going to do a good showing, which he did. The match was actually quite good. It wasn't the greatest I've seen, but it was good. And in the end, he lost. But Ubafemi showed him respect. He gave him a good nod. So now, the question is, what are they going to do with Bourne? They must do something with him. If they do not do something with him, there's a major issue. Because he just went through all that. People already getting interested in Bourne and wondering, because he is what he is, how are they going to make him feel important? Will he get more TV time? Or is he just part of the no quarter catch crew and it doesn't really matter? They just wanted to do something brief with him, which would really not look good. Now, before we get to the final match, let's talk about... I'm going to say this. Jason James and Fallon Henley arguing between each other was not a surprise. It wasn't. And I was not surprised. Seeing that, and this is after the Jordan Grace, and I haven't forgotten the Stephanie Fakir match I'm going to talk about in a moment, but I wanted to bring this in because two women from AAA showed up, and of course JC James smacked Stephanie in the face after she had just been talking with them. So it looks like this Tuesday we will have Stephanie dealing with someone, either JC James, or she'll be dealing with someone from the former debunked AAA. Because it's debunked, it's done. It's not an existing company anymore. Understand, it's been bought out, it doesn't exist. It just has its name only, like WWE has its name only, when it's not a wrestling company anymore. It is a satellite company that's owned by Silver Lake. Not even talking about Endeavor. I'm talking about Silver Lake. Those are the ones who own everything. So from now on, I'm going to say this from now on. Whenever I talk about WWE, I'm going to say TKO WWE owned by Silver Lake, not by Endeavor. Endeavor is no longer the owner. It is Silver Lake. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm not going to call it Silver Lake WWE. It's going to be still TKO because it's still under that tree. So, what did I think about the Jordan Grace versus Stephanie Fakir match? It was the best match of the night. I never said that Stephanie can't wrestle, because she can't. I've never said that Jordan Grace can't wrestle, because that girl can wrestle. The problem I've always had was Stephanie Fakir has no character, has no booking of her character. They just kept her as she was, as a star from outside who was one of the best wrestlers known in the world. That's it. But that's not a character. That's just your status before you came in the company. And look at what's going on with Julia. Julia has no story. The only story she has was when she was working with, guess who? Roxanne Perez. Briefly. She's on the main roster now, but it doesn't really matter because she has no character. No story. No booking covering her character or story. And that's what I see with Stephanie Fakir as well. Yes, they've shown her scenes in Chile. They've shown her family. They've shown her going on press conferences or in interviews. But it does not mean she has character. And when I see this, and I see between the two women who would be the best one to hold that damn title, it's Jordan Grace. Hands down. Because she's had development from the company that's currently working with WWE, and also the development already with WWE going through the Royal Rumble, also going through NXT, and trying to get the NXT title once before. She has a story. She has personality. You can see the personality. It's not because Stephanie cannot talk proper English, because she can talk some English. It's not about that. It's about how they present her. As I've said many times before, this is not about what you did before outside the damn company you're in. This is about what you're doing now. What the company will give you in your development of your story, of your character. And they haven't given her one. I'm sorry, she doesn't have one. So when I see this, I'm thinking they should have just gave it to Jordynne Grace. Not because I love Jordynne Grace. I do. But because Jordynne's got more development than she does. She just does. And it's not just because Jordynne's been there longer. It's because they gave her development. And here's the thing. Jordynne is greatly developed not just because of TNA. She's been there, and they're willing to give her development. But when it comes to Stephanie, nothing. If she can't speak very great English, then give her a damn translator. When she has problems talking English, get her someone that can. If you need to do that, she needs to be developed. This is garbage. I am not happy with this. So I'm not happy that Jordynne Grace didn't win, but I'm even more upset that Stephanie Bakir, who does look like she does have personality, they've not given her one. That's it. Finally, the final match. Joe Henry versus Trick Williams. Now, Santana was there. He showed up, and the No Quarter Catch crew talked with him. Now, Tavion Heights is going to have a match with him, but I'm not going to go into what they said. There's no point in it. When I saw Santana there, I thought, oh, good, they're finally showing Santana, showing another person. But then I'm going like, wait a minute. Santana's after the World Championship, and he even clearly states, whoever wins, I want to let them know I'm going after the World Champion. That was the second hint there was something going on. Unfortunately, the first hint, which was basically a spoiler to me, was when I went to Alex's stream. When he was looking at Double or Nothing. And he started talking. This was after I made my video. And I went to check out Alex's stream, which he was done. And I saw the replay. And he spoke about what happened in Battleground because he wasn't too fond of how long the show was either. And then he mentions Battleground and Trick winning. And I'm going, oh, fuck me. He just said it. Damn it. Trick Williams won. And after that, I turned off his video. I didn't want to watch anything else just in case he was going to say anything more. I hate being surprised with knowing someone wins or not when I can't see it myself. And that pissed my ass off. But I had to go and calm down and said, okay, I know that Trick won. How did he win? And how did they make it look good? And they made it look very good. They had a vid pack with AJ Styles as the narrator talking about what does the TNA title mean. As a narrator, as someone who's been there literally almost from the very beginning of TNA. No, he was there near the beginning of TNA. I think the first couple of episodes of The Asylum, he was there. So he knows it better than anyone how important TNA is. And the vid pack for Trick Williams and him was good. I liked it. And then we had him coming out, and then we had the match itself. There wasn't anyone who came out to interfere with the match. It was just Trick and Joe. You did see Trick try to cheat a little bit. Yeah, he did the thumb to the eye, going, ah, my eye. And he did use the TNA belt, which was great, because then you do protect a Joe Henry. He didn't just win clean. He had to win dirty to be able to win. And he did. He put the thumb to the eye. The ref tried to take the title away from him. He dropped it on the mat. He didn't get a chance to remove it from the ring because of the roll-up that Joe tried to do on Trick. And then Trick nails him by, kind of, it was right over here, but you could say he's trying to nail him in the head with it. And then he does his second trick shot, and Trick Williams won the damn title. Let me give it to you like this. And almost forgot, Jordynne Grace stared at Booker T, and Booker T is going, what the hell? Because Stephanie Bakir got thrown into the reinforced table. I forgot about that. And just in case you guys were going to ask me, I do remember, if you say, what do you think about what Jordynne Grace did staring at Booker T lovingly? Here it is. And I'll say, look for it. It's in there. But What does this mean? This is where it gets an interesting take, guys. Here, hang on a minute. I gotta fix my slippers. Ow. Slippers a little loose. Standing here with a messed up leg, my feet will hurt sometimes. Let me give it to you like this. NXT did what AEW didn't. Let's make this clear. Let's make this very clear. And this is the truth. When you look at the time when AEW was working with Impact Wrestling and Kenny Omega won the damn title. And as I said, when TNA started working with NXT, they're doing what AEW did not. Cross-pollinate. This is the one thing I'm very happy to see. Cross-pollination, where you got TNA wrestlers on NXT and you got NXT wrestlers on TNA. And the thing that sucked the most when it came to AEW is when Moose was going up against Kenny, he went, and it was during the time of the pandemic, of course, there was no fans there, but you had him at Jacksonville having a match with Kenny. Great. But we never saw anything else. We never saw Moose on an episode of Dynamite or on, of course, this is the lowest tier of AEW at the time, and that was Dark and Dark Elevation. Yes, I would like to see Moose on Dark or Dark Elevation, but it would have made sense for Moose to be on the damn show if they're doing a collaboration, because you had multiple people from AEW still going over to Impact Wrestling, and they refused to do it. And that was the stupidest thing. I couldn't stand it. Here, I said when they first started, and I'm still right, you're not going to see any mainline WWE wrestlers on TNA. You're just not going to. And what have we gotten? Legitimately all NXT wrestlers and former WWE wrestlers who now joined, like Indy Hartwell has joined, Mustafa Ali has joined, Nick Nimitz has joined, but they got fired from the company, released actually. But that is the only time you're going to see any of the mainline rosters, original members, and their talents ever show up in TNA. And when you look at Trick Williams, that still holds true. TNA is not considered that important. Still, they can always change that. Yes, we had the rumors of Joe Henry working with The Miz, but at the time, it was one of the executives of TNA, the ones I talked about, they were the one of them did not want to do that, which was a mistake. Now, you did see Carlos Silva, who is the current president of TNA, the new executive who's taken over from somebody else who used to be an executive there. And if anybody says he was an interim, bullshit. He was never indicated as an interim on any of the dirt sheets or any of the sites. He was considered the full-time president of TNA Wrestling. And Silva, if he disappears within a year as well, there is no statements that says that he's an interim either. He was just gotten rid of. So if Carlos Silva gets got, that means he wasn't doing what the CEO of Anthem wants. But at this moment, they have done something no one ever thought would happen. You had a title from a rival company on WWE's pay-per-view or premium live event, and it changed hands to the company that is collaborating. You've never seen it before. WWE has never done that. Not in the entire years that it had existed. Not since the 1960s when WWF was still part of the National Wrestling Alliance. That was the only time that you could see a rival belt, in other words, the National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Championship, possibly be spotlighted on their television or in their company. After the 70s, that is when WWF was doing the WWF own World Heavyweight Championship. I think the early to mid 1960s, because Bruno Sammartino was the champion of the WWF, but they were still working with the National Wrestling Alliance. So I think somewhere around 1960 to 63, WWF decided to have their own title. I could be wrong. You guys can tell me below, but that's what I can remember. Because Vincent Kennedy Jr. didn't change the name to WWF. That was his dad. Senior changed it from Worldwide Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Federation before Vince took it over. But essentially speaking, we have not seen another rival company's belt on WWE's television or any time in the company in over nearly 63 or 65 years, if I'm right. I could be wrong. You guys can go and check for yourself. Tell me below what you know. But the point is, this is a dynamic shift that one of their own wrestlers is currently now working, not just the developmental, but the main roster of another rival company, where the question is going to be now, can they make stories that will be cross-pollinating, that can not only really give more interest to NXT, but really help TNA to grow? And this is going to be a big question. I know people say this is going to skyrocket TNA. We do not know. Remember, guys, WWE is still a roughly considered rival promotion. It is a friendly promotion to TNA, but let's make it very clear. The way they work against AEW, because let's be honest, the people who are currently running WWE on behalf of Silver Lake, they don't give two damn shits about AEW. They're willing to take anyone they could and try to make them look bad in the process. They would. And only the reason that the developmental gains something from TNA is the reason letting TNA have this. Remember, they're not doing this out of their best of their heart. Now, I know you're going to say, dude, what happened with ECW? WWE worked with them. Yes, I know. But let's make it very clear. They never worked as closely compared to TNA than ECW did. ECW, they did do several crossovers. Yes, I'm not forgetting it. But when have you remembered that this was this important? Remember, this is not with Vince. This is now with Silver Lake. So in a sense, this is the first time this new company, remember, this is not old WWE. This is now TKO WWE. This is completely different compared to what it used to be done with Vince, that yes, he did a crossover. He did. But let's make it very clear. That crossover he did with ECW wasn't as substantial as this with TNA. TNA has been around a long time. TNA has always been considered the successor to the alternative, which was supposed to ECW. And let's make it clear that at this point, it's not going to be absorbed into TKO WWE. They just did that with AAA. I don't think they're doing this with TNA. I just don't see it right now, or ever, because it counts on if Anthem is willing to sell it. Remember, Ari doesn't own anything anymore. He sold Endeavor to Silver Lake. So this is not a decision that Ari is going to make. The shareholders of Silver Lake will make the final decisions. No matter if Ari wants to sell, or Triple H wants to sell, or Nick Khan wants to sell, or The Rock wants to sell. This will still be on the Silver Lake board of directors. It's simple as that. And I don't see them wanting to sell I'm kind of getting in reverse, but you know what I mean. When it comes to WWE, they're not going to sell anything. When it comes to Anthem, I doubt they're going to be selling it either. I don't see either company selling to either one if they're making a profit. I don't see Silver Lake buying TNA. It's got to go through. It's going to be something they think it's worth it. And then I don't see Anthem selling it, because at this time, because of what's going on, I honestly do not see it happening. I just don't see TNA being sold by Anthem unless they're willing to spend a lot of money and Anthem really gets something out of it, which I don't think they'll gain enough. I think they really want to keep TNA and make it as big as WWE, which they can't, but they're going to make it as big as they want, at least within their ability. And sorry if I got a little confused between Silver Lake selling, because basically it's the same thing. If Silver Lake sells WWE, it's not going to be Nick, it's not going to be Ari, it's not going to be Triple H or The Rock. It's going to go through them. They're going to make the decision to buy or sell. In this case, I don't see TNA being sold because I don't see Anthem selling it, but I don't see Silver Lake wanting to buy TNA anyway. I just don't see them because they just bought AAA. They don't really need TNA. They don't. They just don't. In fact, AAA will be more profitable to them than TNA is because they've been around longer. And more than that, honestly, they got an entire country that they have people that they can draw from. TNA is from the United States, but AAA is from Mexico. I think they'll get way more out of it. So this is just me. And I hope you enjoy this kind of confusing near the end of Battleground. I hope you enjoy this. Give me a comment below. Tell me if I'm right about WWE. What, like I said, I know ECW was working with WWE at one point, but it's different because this is the TKO era, and now this isn't AAA. This is TNA that is working, and they just gave them their title. But it's just me. Peace.